Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. We are live late night on the East Coast here with our wonderful, incredible, courageous reporter, JT Siskowski. You're probably on hour 18 of the working day, so we're not going to keep you all night. But we are, let's start by saying the obvious and welcome to all of MeidasTouch. And your incredible viewers watching. We're co-streaming on Status Coup and MeidasTouch. So I believe they call you the Meidas Mighty. Thank you for having us. And thank you to Ben and everyone at Meidas. This partnership has been incredible. It's really, we're so appreciative to have such a massive platform value the on-the-ground reporting we do. We have been on the ground. When I say we, I mean JT, John Farina, our cameraman, Tina Desiree Berg, who works with us, and several others. We've been on the ground basically for nearly a year covering President Trump's, I don't know what you call it, other than fascist federal invasion. Yeah. We've been on the ground in New York City covering ICE. We've been on the ground in D.C. covering the National Guard invasion, down at Alcatraz concentration camp. We have been in Chicago for over 2 months, Charlotte and Minneapolis, and I forget, LA, where this all started. So we have been all over this country. And to be clear, we have the resources, not of CNN. We do not have the budget of CNN, MS Now, Fox. We're basically a guerrilla journalism outfit funded by the people. So thank you to all the MeidasTouch folks who have subscribed to our channel, and even more so to people who are supporting us financially, because we take $0 from what I like to call the United Corporations of America, the bloodsuckers donating to both, frankly, the Republican and Democratic Party who have purchased our politicians. So thank you to everyone who signed up. StatusCoup.com/join to support this on-the-ground reporting. Now let's get to it. JT, you called me this morning. You know, that's basically how this works. You call me what's happening on the ground. You've been in Minneapolis now. This is your third time, I think, for us. This time for a week.
I don't even know.
Saying we're rushing over. Another person got shot. That's all you said. So tell me for the minute you got. And by the way, just so folks are clear, I know a lot of people right now all over political media are focusing on, you know, the shooting, obviously, and the tick by tick what happened. Obviously, there's plenty of channels doing that. If you have eyes and a brain, this man was assassinated. Yeah. I mean, that's obvious. Yeah. He was pinned down by, I believe, 6 or 7 Border Patrol / ICE agents. He was legally carrying a gun, and he, to be very clear, did not confront ICE or Border Patrol agents with a gun. He was holding his phone, which is his legal right. So we're not going to get into the footage of that. We want to get into the aftermath, which honestly looks like Fallujah. Yeah. It looks like a third world country, no disrespect to those countries, many of which we've invaded. And literally you and John were ducking, and I don't say this dramatically, for your lives today. Yeah. So yeah. You get to the scene. Before we start playing some of the clips, because some of you watching might not have seen it, what do you first see? As far as I could tell, because I had CNN and MS Now on, we were the first ones live of national networks.
Yeah, we were on the scene very early. And in fact, I thought getting over there that we were late to the game, so to speak, meaning just that John and I didn't see the initial reports of shots fired that were coming through some of these signal chats that have been much discussed, that the activist community here in the Twin Cities area is using to coordinate and talk about immigration enforcement agents' operations in the Twin Cities. The initial reports that were put into those chats, I missed. And John was getting ready for the day, and we were about to go out, and then suddenly John comes into the room and says, "Hey, have you seen this?" And, you know, at that point, it was immediately out the door. We got down there. we were able to park like right
And
next to the.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to take people kind of behind the scenes because,
Yeah.
as humbly as I could say it, we are one of the only national
Yes.
independent, keyword independent. We don't have any funding from United Healthcare. We don't have any funding from Goldman Sachs, the remaining Koch brother, any of the corporate vampire vultures purchasing our government and the corporate America. But I want to be clear, you guys thus far, it's basically just this chaotic game of whack-a-mole
Yeah.
you guys do on the road. You
Yep.
are legally, as journalists, following Border Patrol and ICE throughout the day, and you're kind of jumping around from one chaotic situation to the next. So you guys were planning, correct me if I'm wrong, on following ICE caravans.
Correct.
And then you get a call, and a lot of times you don't know if it's a false tip or it could be, what this turned into. So you were planning on going on a following ICE when you got this call.
Yeah. We were getting ready to head out the door for that, and then we get this tip. We get on the road. We get down to the scene. We're able to park almost right next to the scene. We hop out. We get up there. Our incredible cameraman John Farina was so on the ball. He just had all of our equipment prepped in the car on the way over, and he hopped out and was nearly ready to go live. That instant, I told him to just, we're going to pump the brakes for just a second because I just wanted to talk to a few people before the cameras were rolling on the scene to find out what I could learn. We did that for a few minutes. Then there was a little bit of technical back and forth with our staff at Status Coup to get on the, to actually get on the air, start streaming. So I thought that we were so far behind the ball on what was happening here at this scene. I was chastising myself, and then came to find out later that no, we were the only ones who were live down there at the scene, at least for national press. It was just us. And when we got to the scene, what we found was an intersection that had been blocked off on all sides. And we arrived, and we were on the eastern side to start. And then we heard bangs, and I didn't know what the bangs were. And of course, when you're going down to a scene of the shooting, you assume the worst. But we start to make our way around to the north side, and that's when I started to see, it's flashbang grenades that are going off, and that just became the start of what will become hours and hours of federal agents firing endless rounds of tear gas and flashbang grenades and pepper balls and pepper spray into the crowds of these protesters who showed up to peacefully protest ICE's presence in their community. And it was just this never-ending slog of violence directed at anyone and everyone within the federal government's reach down there. There was no targeting of particular people. It was just mass pain across South Minneapolis in the several block radius all around this scene. Over the course of those several hours, we made our way, we circumnavigated basically the entire scene, and we saw the worst of the violence there on the south side of this intersection where a large group of protesters had gathered. They would walk up to some police tape. They did not cross the police tape. They would walk right up to it. They would protest, but they weren't throwing anything, I will note, until after several rounds of being tear gassed, they started to throw the tear gas canisters back at the agents. But for those first few moments, for those first few rounds, it was just people being put in the crosshairs of this federal government and continuously victimized, and including, John and myself got it, but that's part of on the ground reporting.
So I want to start. We put this live stream together pretty quick. So these clips that we're going to air we don't know which order they are, but we're going to start showing you some of these clips for those of you who didn't see our live stream or didn't watch the full live stream, because honestly, it's not dramatic to say this looks like a war zone in America.
No, I should call out on that point, Jordan. Our cameraman John Farina has been in a war zone. He has reported in Ukraine, and he was talking about this in war zone terms. That's what this reminded him of. Obviously, there weren't like shrapnel bombs going off. There's not bombed out buildings, but just the amount of force, the way that you are, at times running, dodging, ducking for cover for your life. I mean, that's what he said that it reminded him of, is he was taken back to his time in Ukraine.
Good segue. Let's start showing some of that. Colin, whatever clip you got first.
Flashbang grenades are going off here in the crowd, and the federal law enforcement are kicking tear gas canisters closer to the protesters. Get this side. John, run right behind us. Keep coming back. John, keep coming back now. Yeah, we gotta get out of here. Yeah, people are taking refuge inside the building. John, more! Okay? I'm alright. How are you? Alright. It's fucking bullshit. I just gotta say it. The continuous firing. I'm okay. I'm okay. Thank you. I'm okay. Members of the community out here offering water to everybody who's being directly affected by the tear gas that's being fired there is not being fired by the local law enforcement. It's being fired by the federal government who are standing behind that local law enforcement presence.
They're moving this way.
I have a lot to say, but you were there, so let's start with you. Could you kind of describe in the moment? Obviously, as a journalist, you don't ever want to be the story, but you're also a human. Can you kind of describe, because you were, we're all taught in journalism school, which, by the way, they teach you a bunch of bullshit there. Be neutral. Don't give your opinion. Well, I don't think as a journalist, you should be neutral to fascism. And it seems like you were kind of finally, you're at your breaking point because journalists and unarmed people are being attacked by the federal government.
Yeah, I very much was at my breaking point because of the tactics I was seeing on display. Again, it was just the way that the federal government was going out of its way to victimize people. They had a perimeter that they had established. They had put up, that police do not cross tape at various points around this intersection near where the shooting had happened. And they had set the ground rules for people and given them places to stand. And when the people showed up to protest and stand at the edge of that perimeter, what you're seeing, happens right before that clip is all of these federal agents with police standing in front of them come walking down that street that they have established, this area where people are supposed to be allowed to stand. They are moving through there and then just tear gassing and flash banging, pushing people to their breaking point after they have already killed multiple people in this city. They're now just going into this crowd, and then the tear gas falls, so everybody backs up and they're like, okay, we won't stand there. And then it doesn't matter. They start throwing tear gas canisters behind where people are standing, so it doesn't matter. They have to run through the gas. They have to have the pain inflicted on them, ourselves included. In our rush to get down there, John had left his respirator behind, and I had left my goggles behind, which those are the two areas that tear gas agitates. It's your lungs and your eyes. So between John and I, we have to continuously support each other. And so my eyes are stinging. I can barely see. I'm blinking out all of the gas in that moment. John is trying his hardest not to breathe. And then we're finally getting, they push us down the street, around a corner, back through a parking lot before they finally can't get at us anymore, and it ends. Thankfully, there's a moment of reprieve, and that's where you see that journalistic facade just crack with me. And you can't contain yourself, nor should you. I mean, that's what you're seeing is just rampant fascism. They came down there and they shot someone after they had already killed someone. They killed someone. They escalated the pressure on the city, and then it came out with and it led to what? It led to another execution of a citizen of the United States by their own government. And then their only response that is further escalation, is further pressure on people. I mean, what else can you say aside from this is bullshit? This is bullshit. This is your tax dollars at work. It's not coming back to you in the form of healthcare. It's not coming back to you in the form of education. It's coming back to you in tear gas and in bullets.
And by the way, for those of you old enough, probably not old enough, but who know history, the United States media didn't really report at all, really, on what was going on in Germany. And what they did report, it was minimized. So it is our job not to sit here and tell you the Department of Homeland Security says this man came at Border Patrol agents with a gun, when 5 different video angles show you he was holding a phone. Our job as journalists should be to scream, this is lawlessness. This is fascism. They are shooting at unarmed people. And I had this experience now a decade ago at Standing Rock. This is reminding me a lot of what I reported at Standing Rock. In that case, you had basically police working on behalf of an oil company to literally pour water cannons of freezing water at Native Americans banging on drums and singing, trying to save their water from an oil pipeline being rammed through Native American land. I saw, by the way, when you hear the media describe these less lethal projectiles, I literally saw a man nearly have his scalp ripped off at Standing Rock by a less lethal rubber bullet because it was shot point blank in his head. You could die from these less lethals that they're shooting if you are hit at point blank range. If a flashbang grenade hits you at point blank range, you could be paralyzed or die. That's a fact. So the media is, it's just, this is not a both sides situation. This is lawless fascism. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, a Republican, if you're an alien, if you're politically agnostic. They are shooting at unarmed people and journalists. I also want to share, JT, and I want you to tell the audience, and by the way, I am not beyond begging the people. We will not beg corporations or donors to fund us, but we take zero corporate dollars. And this reporting, full disclosure, we're spending about $10,000 to $15,000 a month to be on the ground right now in places like Minneapolis, before that Chicago, travel, flights, hotel, rent a car, gas, food, safety equipment. You guys have spent a lot, rightfully so, on safety equipment. It costs a lot of money, and a lot of money to do this independently. So if you can't, it's okay. But if you can, in the audience, you could support us for as low as $5 a month. That's statuscoup.com/join. I want to remind the audience of a few things before we go to the next clip. It's minus 10 degrees out.
Yeah.
It was minus 10 degrees while you were out there. Our cameraman, John, who is very humble and he won't complain publicly, his fingers are not working while he's holding the camera because his fingers were nearly frostbitten a month ago. For those of you watching, if you remember a month ago in Minneapolis, there was a clash where ICE agents were literally trying to freeze to death a construction worker on a roof. Protests erupted. It was sub-zero temperatures there. And our cameraman, John, he had gloves on, but to operate the camera, he had to take the tips off of the gloves. Well, he was live for us basically for 3 to 4 hours, and his fingers turned black. And he had to go to the emergency room for a short period. We didn't know if he was going to have to get a finger taken off. It was that bad. And it's taking a long time to heal, and he's in a lot of pain, but he's still holding that camera, even though his fingers are killing him. And JT, could you kind of describe, obviously there's worse things than cold weather, but it's minus 10 degrees. So with the wind chill, it feels like about minus 25. On top of that, I've inhaled tear gas. It's kind of hard to speak when you're inhaling tear gas. So all this is happening. Can you kind of describe, like, how are you able to do this in the frigid cold with tear gas and tell people what's going on?
Well, you're barely able to, right? You're barely able to function. There was even one moment, and I'm not sure if it came across on the stream. I tried to talk about it a little bit, but where my own hand that was gripping the microphone that I was talking into that whole time, you're as I'm dodging tear gas canisters and flashbang grenades going off, I'm just gripping this microphone for dear life. I'm not thinking about my hands until I realize at one point, like, oh, I actually can't feel my hand anymore. And I know that John had told me that that's how the frostbite set in for him. Is it wasn't pain. It was just I lost feeling, and because I lost feeling, I didn't know what was happening to me. And so I recognized that because John had been through it, and John luckily had these fancy electric heated gloves. We traded gloves, and somebody else, another journalist, got me a hand warmer activated to get in the glove and actually heat it up in that moment in the midst of everything going on. Like they were disregarding their own safety to no longer pay attention to the tear gas canisters that are flying through the air in order to get me that just to get me that relief. And luckily we were able to then last for several more hours out there like that. But yeah, it adds a whole level of danger. And on top of that, anybody who is familiar with a cold weather climate knows that you don't want to be too cold, certainly, but you also don't want to be too hot, because you start to sweat, and then that sweat will actually freeze and make you make your whole body go cold, and regardless of how many layers you're wearing. And when you're dodging tear gas canisters and sprinting down the street carrying a whole bunch of AV equipment, that was also something that we had to be cognizant of we need to exert ourselves to be in the safe places, but not so much that then we're freezing ourselves.
Right. Colin, let's play the next clip.
Do you feel good about yourself? Do you feel good about
Maybe
yourself?
Colin first to death himself. Colin, you there?
Do you not see the clip I was playing?
I was able to see it on my end. It just is playing out as frames rather than, or for me, it's playing out just as frames rather than like the full video. But hopefully you guys are able to see it more clearly on your end.
Yeah, I
No, I
think
didn't
chat
see it.
seats are fine.
Hold
Okay.
on. Colin, are you seeing JT frozen?
No, that's just you.
Yeah, just you, Jordan.
You're seeing me frozen?
No, you're fine.
Yeah, you're
Everything's
fine.
fine on our end. So anything wrong is on your end.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm not seeing the video play, so I'll
just refresh your page. I'll add you back in while I play the video.
hold on. Hold on, folks. We don't quite have the staff of MeidasTouch, so let me, yeah, we'll keep talking, and hopefully he can load up the videos. I want to also
These
address,
authorities here in the
it's
riot
kinda
here are
hard,
actually U.S.
JT, to
Customs
know
and Border
who's
Protection.
firing at you. You don't
So
know
not
who's
local
Border Patrol,
authorities
you don't
at all.
know
This
who's
is
ICE,
federal
you don't know who's
authorities still.
DHS police, and you don't know exactly what they're firing at any one point.
More tear
Can you
gas
kind of
being thrown in this
describe both
crowd.
today and in other instances you've covered, what exactly are they firing at people, and what's going through your mind? Do you know every time what they're launching, and what are some of the symptoms you and others are experiencing?
I
Can you
think
repeat?
I think Jordan was talking through that. Jordan, I said I was going to play the clip and to refresh your page. He might not be able to hear us.
No, I don't think so. I think we're losing the boss. Apologies to all of you watching at home here. It's been quite the day for us and certainly for myself here. As we try to navigate these many hours that we've been working and
You see me?
exhausting ourselves. I do, Jordan. Hopefully you're able to see and hear me as well.
All right. Back online. All right.
There we go.
Colin, let's play the next clip.
See there, the agents moved up to the line in response to protesters putting like barricades up. Now you see them spraying pepper spray, firing more of that, more chemical irritants into the crowd, throwing out tear gas. John and I are edging back away from it. John, on your feet. We're making our way back. Agents are now down the road behind us too. See, agents are firing the tear gas here behind the protesters as they back up. They have to retreat through clouds of tear gas. You see here protesters trying to lob the tear gas canisters back a little ways. Mercifully, the wind is blowing some of the tear gas away from us for the most part right now. Hey.
Sorry to see you, audience.
Thank you. What the fuck, dude? Fuck you. Protesters they're hearing those bangs go off. Those are just further tear gas canisters being fired.
I know.
Some of the what I'm hearing is what we were just told by a fellow reporter who we're out here with. Just ran up to us and told us that the federal agents are actually actively leaving right now. And so what we might be seeing here is literally a smokescreen or a use of force just to cover their withdrawal. I have to verify that for myself. So one of the protesters just walked up and pointed out to me through the smoke, whew, as I try to squint through it myself, and it stings your eyes, but that the agents are pulling back into vehicles right now.
Jordan, were you able to see that the clip stopped playing there?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I'd like to ask, we hear from the right wing, these are the rioters. All I see are people running for their fucking lives. Can you describe in the moment what's going on? I mean, we see the flashbang grenades, which sound like bombs, but it seems to me they're just like pepper spraying people for no reason, tossing tear gas canisters for no reason, with zero threat against them, the agents.
That's what it felt like to stand there, is the tear gas canisters, the pepper spray. There were a few occasions where agents actually picked individual people out of the crowd and started chasing after them specifically. But so far as I could tell from, and I'm there, I'm on the ground, I'm looking at everything happening just feet in front of my face, I could not tell any rhyme or reason to why the agents were using force other than it was just at their disposal because they could, and because they seem to have a power trip fantasy, because one or two canisters of tear gas is probably in those confined streets that were in there, probably is enough to get the crowd to move back. But they would throw, I mean, a half dozen or more at a time. And at a certain point, after hours of that, like John and I were just wondering, are they going to run out? Is that what's finally going to bring this scene to an end? Because when it goes on and they use so much, you don't understand why. I mean, that's almost like what you're praying for, is just that they're going to run out, so that way we don't have to continuously do this. That, yeah, they would just advance at random, chase people back to random points. I saw them back that crowd up to various distances. It didn't seem like they were trying to maintain any sort of real perimeter. They would just chase everybody back to a certain, to a arbitrary point in the street, and then they would retreat. It's almost like it was some fucking game to them.
It seems to me they're playing out like their fantasy Call of Duty on the streets of Minneapolis.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely what it was. I mean, you even saw like some of the agents, like I don't know if celebrate is really the right word, but certainly relish in the moment when they would, throw a particularly well-placed tear gas canister or the like, or shoot somebody up with pepper balls. There was also one strange moment where an agent, again, when they advanced to arbitrary points, they pushed John and I back into this parking lot, and we're standing there with a couple of other people from the press right across from this agent. And the agent turns to us and offered us hand warmers in this bizarre, like, you've just been tear gassing us. In fact, there was even one point where John and I were actually like penned in a parking lot, and there's tear gas on both sides, agents on both sides, where we have nowhere to flee to. We're just forced to stand there and hope that they don't decide to arrest us. Like, that's the kind of thing that we're going through for hours and hours out there. And then all of a sudden you have an agent like come up to you and be like, do you guys need hand warmers? Like, free hand warmers with your fascism, complimentary hand warmers with fascism, and acting as though like, hey, we're the good guys here, right, media? Be sure to, advance the DHS's talking points, because we're the good guys here. Look, I'm offering you hand warmers. Meanwhile, the community is doing the same thing on the other side, offering hand warmers, water, food, shelter. There were neighbors who were dropping water bottles out their window, ushering people inside of their buildings for refuge, and aren't inflicting that pain on people. But the federal government wants to act, or this agent wants to act as though that just, doing this one simple act of kindness makes up for the fact that they are shooting and killing people on the streets of Minneapolis.
Hand warmers with your fascism. Put that on a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
I want to ask you if you could kind of describe as best as you can, because I think it's important to kind of put a face to, I guess in this case, the resistance. I mean, I've always found that term a little cheesy, but can you kind of describe the actual protesters themselves? They seem to me not to be intimidated. Obviously, we're human, so you're going to run if you're being shot at with grenades and tear gas, but they seem very, very courageous. They seem very, very refusing to back down. What were you seeing? Kind of, we couldn't see everything on camera in those protesters and how they were responding to this attack.
Yeah, I think I remarked on it several times during the stream of just the bravery that was on display from those protesters. When you had seen people being, tackled to the ground, arrested, or detained by the federal government, when you saw them using so much force against people, that crowd, every single time, even though you know that the federal government at some point is going to just have that violent reaction, they would still walk back up. And this is a federal government that has demonstrated the willingness to use lethal force on these people. They had done it earlier today, and yet this crowd still would walk back up to that police line tape. They would not cross it, but they would walk back up to that police line tape and stand there, and sometimes put their arms up in signs of nonviolence. They would kneel down on the ground and obviously do the chants and such. When you ask me to describe, what this protest or resistance movement looked like, my first reaction was to be like, oh God, how do I even begin to do that? Because it is so diverse. I mean, it is a cross section of life. I mean, there were times John and I captured images on our camera of a woman who had to have been in her 70s being helped out of the clouds of tear gas. I watched somebody in a wheelchair bravely try to cross that police line tape first asks to be allowed to cross the road. When the agents let them through, then they try to turn and go up the street closer towards the scene of the shooting, and agents have to like physically stop the wheelchair and actually like push the person then out of that scene. I saw somebody with a cane and wearing a full a gas mask. I saw people, people who had to be as young as teenagers out there, but also, like I said, into their 70s and all walks of life out there. I mean, this really is truly a cross section of America that was standing on one side of that police line tape, and on the other line was the government there to try and intimidate and punish Americans for just having the temerity to stand in their streets.
And I'm curious, and I'm not even asking this just so I could shit on them, which I do like to shit on corporate media, but faces. Obviously, there was a cloud of smoke, but for the most part, while you were there, it seemed to me in watching, I didn't see like in real time a lot of the major networks live when we were live. I saw them later kind of show up, but were you seeing like more media show up as the hours went on? Because we were live before the major networks, but when I've been on the ground, and I know when you've been on the ground, it's very disappointing often because we see when the networks are there, they're typically further back. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and here I have to rely on another reporter, my wife, who gave me a little bit of background after we were done being live, and I called her just to let her know that I was safe. I did see some other press show up. There was one TV camera that was there, and then there are several, and this is true at a lot of the scenes where we're at. It's usually the independent media who's actually there on the front lines showing the stuff of what's happening on the ground. And there were, yes, several independent photographers certainly that were there on the ground. Not everybody is, prominently displaying what news outlet they're with. So I hesitate to say like, oh, this outlet certainly wasn't there or was, because I just don't know. But from what my wife said is her parents, who are conservative, had News Nation on in their house, and my wife was visiting them today. And so apparently that News Nation crew was near where John and I were, because my wife had our stream up in addition to News Nation being on the TV, and she would watch the same scenes play out in both places. But after it turned, after some of that tear gas had been deployed, then yes, the News Nation camera moved apparently far down the street and is showing things from quite the distance where you can't make out exactly what's happening. Whereas our coverage, I mean, John and I stayed there in the thick of the action until all the authorities had left the scene, and then we stayed on the scene afterwards to also show the celebration and the grieving among the protesters.
I brought that up not merely to kind of, brush off our shoulder. And frankly, please support us if you can. Again, we are independent, and we take $0 from the big banks, the fossil fuel companies, big pharma, big real estate, Silicon Valley, the military industrial complex, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it is accurate to say this type of brutality you don't get to see on major network news. They don't tend to show this level of brutality. Often they kind of show up to protests and they pop in and come out, or they kind of shoot it in a way where they're showing the police more than protesters being gassed. So I think it's super important to have independent media out there, because we are showing in full brutality and full fascism what is going on. Let's play the next clip you have, Colin.
They're tackling somebody in the street, piling on him and arresting him. Agents telling press to back
You're
up.
seeing and hearing me?
The man is trying to scream out his name.
I'm seeing the clip.
JT, put the microphone, direct the You're gonna have to kill me! I have done nothing at all! I have done nothing at all! I have done nothing at all! My name is Matthew James! Obadiah Allen! I'm a United States citizen! If you kill me on the street,
They just sprayed pepper spray directly into the man's face.
you're gonna kill me! That's what you want? You wanna kill me? You wanna kill me on the street? You're gonna have to fucking kill me! I have done nothing wrong! I have done nothing! Ah! Ah! I have done nothing wrong! Ah! I have done nothing!
And I
Matthew James!
have since
Obadiah!
done some more reporting on that man that we just saw arrested there, who he was. He is a local artist here in the Twin Cities area, known in the Twin Cities area, who goes by Nerdy, and that's NUR-D. But he is a known face here in the Twin Cities area, and some of those things that he was yelling at times directly into our camera, I think are going to live with and haunt me for a while, especially some challenges that he issued to the media, like including saying, like, as he's being hauled away in a pickup truck, saying you just stood there and took pictures, meaning you didn't help me. And of course, we're there to just see it and document it, but his words will continue to ring in my ears, because at what point, do you stand up and try to do something? I would like to think that our roles here as journalists are to inform the masses, to present them what is actually happening on the ground, so that they can act and hold their leaders accountable. That's our role there. But in those moments, you do feel that you feel you're a human being first. And John and I, during some of those tear gassings and rounds of flashbangs going off, as we're trying to get ourselves to safety, there are people there that are struggling to breathe or to see, and we would try and help them to safety as well, because at a certain point you are just a person.
I want to point something out with that interaction, and I've been following up too. As far as we know, he's been detained. As of this hour, I don't know if he's been released, but physically he's okay. But there's something you didn't see in that particular clip. You will see it in the full video, which we posted before we went live. So go check out under our video tab. He was begging for an ambulance. He was saying, "I can't breathe." You remember Eric Garner many years ago. They say the pain is the point with the Trump administration, his Gestapo. Remember with Renee Good, they refused a doctor on the scene. They refused that doctor to go check on her. And she still had a pulse, according to the reporting, for as much as 8 to 10 minutes after. And they refused a doctor. They refused her medical care. In this case, JT, you were hearing it, him saying, "I can't breathe. I need an ambulance." Were you seeing any of the agents there rushing to get him medical relief?
No, I did hear some of the agents say, after he had asked for an ambulance, I don't know how many times, many times, finally, I did hear one of the agents say, "We're going to get you that." But it was basically a negotiation. It's like, if you want an ambulance, you have to submit to us and do exactly as we say, and then you will get medical care. If you want medical care, then you have to allow us to arrest you, detain you, haul you off to We're not telling you where. You have to allow us to dogpile you, to manhandle you, to throw you in the back of this pickup truck, and then, or just voluntarily march off with us to somewhere, even though we have already demonstrated our willingness to kill people here in Minneapolis. So if you want that medical care, you better fucking do what we say.
I'm curious if this was going through your mind at all. I mean, literally, there's horrifying stories about literally they're accepting people into ICE and Border Patrol due to AI error. That, like, it's just, there's no vetting. There's really no background checks. AI made a mistake and they accepted hundreds of people. So these people, as Emperor Trump would say, they're not sending their best. I'm watching that and I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, at any minute they might shoot this guy. I don't know if that was going through your mind, but like, they just killed another person out like an hour or two before that. Were you at all watching that, wondering, like, it's calm now, but could this turn deadly any minute?
It was on my mind every single second that I was out there. Before John and I went live, there was a point where we were making our way from one side of the scene to another. And as we're walking, I heard booms. And at first, I would later learn that those booms were the sound of flashbang grenades going off. But in that moment, what I thought was, they're shooting more people, or the people of Minneapolis are shooting back. And that was my first thought. And luckily, that was not the case. The city of Minneapolis showed, I think, heroic restraint today, given the corner that they have been backed into by the Trump administration. But yeah, when that man was on the ground, he was saying, you're going to kill me, over and over again, because that fear is so palpable and so real. And again, I am a human being. I have a 5-month-old daughter at home. The thing that I'm thinking that entire time that I was live is just, I need to make sure I get back to my wife, and I need to make sure that my daughter grows up with a father. And that's what's going through my mind, even as I'm trying to narrate everything, dodge everything, make sure John is safe. Like, that is the thought that's happening on repeat inside of my head, that I'm worried that those agents, because they were out there with long guns. Especially when we first showed up. It seemed like the scene that we spent most of our time at, eventually those agents with the long guns, from what I could see, eventually disappeared. I'm not sure where they went. But they were out there with long guns, and I just kept thinking, am I about to see something truly horrific out here? Thankfully, that did not happen.
I want to make a point. JT was the one out there today, and he's been out there for us for months. But I think it's so important, the audience watching now, we just live in a sea of bullshit. I don't know what other way to put it. Everybody and their mother have a YouTube channel and a podcast. Everyone's an influencer. Everyone, between TikTok and podcasts and Substacks and YouTube, 99% of the people out there, even some I like, they're sitting in a studio bloviating out of their behinds. Some, I'm not saying you have to be on the ground to have value. I think MeidasTouch, they're not on the ground and they do amazing work. But I want to make a point. It's not dramatic to say JT and John, JT, our reporter, John, they're risking their bodies to be out there. And we do not have the funding of corporate media. And trust me, they're not, as much as I'd like to pay you more, they're not getting paid what Anderson Cooper is being paid. So when we ask you to support us financially, it's not so we could like go to the casino or have a nice dinner. It's literally to pay to keep the lights on. It's literally to pay for the flight to Minneapolis, for the rent-a-car, for the hotels. I mean, we've been in Minneapolis now for over a month, every night at hotels, and not super nice ones. We're asking you to support us to help us do living, breathing justice journalism. And I call it justice journalism because we're not here to stand like this, like neutral robots. If you are neutral to fascism, you are a accomplice to that fascism. If you are going to say, well, this side says this and this side says this, we're neutral, you fucking figure it out. No. That's part of why we got Trump. Because corporate media literally in a decade ago showed his empty podium for 45 minutes at a time. They gave him billions of dollars of free airtime. And I'm not even going to get started with the Democratic Party. I know a lot of the Meidas audience supports Democrats. You could do whatever you want. I'm here to tell you, in my opinion, at Status Coup, our channel, there's no red team. There's no blue team. The only color that matters in this country is green. Is Trump worse than the Democrats? Absolutely. Let's not paint a false equivalence. But the Democrats, in many ways, have enabled this fascism. And to be clear, 7 or 8 Democrats before Alex Pretti was murdered today voted to continue funding this Gestapo. 7 or 8 Democrats voted to provide funding for ICE and DHS. So I'm not saying they are the equivalent of Trump, but we're not going to lie to you and say, in Democrats we trust, they'll bring you to the promised land. Democrats are part of why we got this. JT, sorry I got on my soapbox, but I want to make the point, and maybe you, since you were there, could ask as well, why is it important to fund independent media? If people want to fund us, please do. But even if it's not us, why is it so important to fund independent media so we could show this?
I've worked in corporate press. I was a local TV reporter. It probably still comes across like quite a bit, probably when I am live at these scenes, that I am not, still leaning so much into my emotion and the newfound freedom that I have in reporting for an outlet like Status Coup that allows me to actually show what is happening on the ground. But I've seen the way that they work, and I know that the way that this will be framed. And it didn't surprise me when my wife told me how News Nation was framing it in conjunction to, in comparison to what we were showing live. They were trying to already spin the victim, Alex Pretti, before we even knew his name, trying to spin that this was a criminal, essentially just taking the government's line and running with it, or acting like this is in some way a legitimate source of information, even though they have demonstrated the ability to and the willingness to lie repeatedly about these situations. Because unfortunately, this is not the first person that these government agents have shot and killed. But what the corporate press is going to do is they are going to say, well, on one side, we have these protesters who seem pretty angry. And on the other hand, we have, here's what the lies the federal government are saying. I don't know, you figure it out. And they're gonna leave all of the actual journalism, the fact finding, the truth telling, to someone else, not them, because that's a hard job. So that's why it's important to support independent media, because we're actually there. We actually put our bodies on the line to be able to show what these scenes are really like. We're not constrained by corporate presses, advertiser constrained newscasts or newspapers where they only have a certain number of column inches that they need to fit around the ads for toothpaste and whatever. We can talk for as long as we need to get the full truth out there. And then we don't have to be beholden to that corporate influence in telling that truth. We can say exactly what we see without worrying about making an advertiser mad. Because
we don't have any advertisers. I also want to tell the Meidas audience, and again, thank you to MeidasTouch, the Meidas Mighty, as they call it. You remember that historic image on January 6th of Officer Daniel Hodges, his Capitol Police officer's head rammed into the door he's crushed like a sardine by a mob of Trump insurrectionists? That image was brought to you by Status Coup, our cameraman, John Farina, who was there today. So this is not our first rodeo. Again, if you came to this late, we didn't start in Minneapolis. We've been on the ground covering the ICE invasion, the violent federal invasion In LA, we were there for weeks when Trump sent in ICE Border Patrol. Our reporter there, Tina Desiree Berg, got shot in the leg with a rubber bullet. Fortunately, it didn't hit her skin because she was wearing Kevlar. We were on the ground in New York City at the federal courthouse as they were attacking immigrants, politicians. We've been there. We were on the ground. When I say we, JT and John were on the ground for over 2 months. Over 2 months. He's got a newborn child, and he was on the ground on and off for 2 months in Chicago to show you that violent fascism at the Broadview Detention Center. We were on the ground down at Alligator Alcatraz, one of the few outlets that were down there. We went there twice. We were on the ground in Charlotte, where Border Patrol came up to our cameraman's car and threatened to arrest him for the crime of filming them. And now Minneapolis. So again, support us if you can. JT, I know it's been a long night. I'm going to play one more clip and then let you go because you deserve 20 whiskeys, frankly. Colin, if we could play one more clip.
And we're getting shot at again. We're showing off here in the crowd. John and I are making a beeline out of it. Wasn't clear to me what led up to that.
Nothing.
Yeah, it seemed like the law enforcement and the protesters are just content standing there, and then all of a sudden, law enforcement starts throwing tear gas.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Over here. JT.
Trying to safely make our way out of that cloud of tear gas. You see, when agents use tear gas, when authorities use tear gas, they tear gas everyone, including the elderly. I mean, it affects entire communities.
Heads up, there's another one.
We're looking at agents throw even more out now. I keep saying agents, these are not the federal government. This is local authorities who are doing this.
Let's get out of here.
John and I are backing up down the street here. Just trying to make sure that we're staying at a safe distance. It looks like authorities are the tear gas canister rolled just behind John. We're trying to keep ourselves off to the side. We're behind a car taking shelter. There's more tear gas is being thrown behind where we're standing right now, so we're going to try and move and get beyond it before it builds up and traps us in the middle of it.
So yeah, there is that's from the very end of the violence out on those streets. And that round of tear gassing was actually courtesy of local and state police who were out there securing part of that scene. And there you see that I'm not ready when that tear gas is deployed. I even asked John at some point because after all that tear gas had been deployed, because I asked him what prompted that. Was there something with the crowd or something? And he said, no, they just did it. And it seemed to be to just cover their withdrawal, that they just pop all these chemical munitions. This is the local people, the local leaders are sponsoring this. Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Jacob Frey, it's their police forces that are doing this, even as they're saying, ICE, get the fuck out of Minnesota, and calling, for some relief for their population to stop terrorizing them. It's their police forces that are deploying all of that tear gas. It seemed like to be a smokescreen so that they could leave, though it's not clear to me why that is a necessary tactic when they could just drive away. I can't begin to wrap my mind around it. But then, yeah, that's that scene where you see a woman who had to have been at least in her 60s, if not her 70s, being helped out of the smoke there by people. And that's one of those images from today that I think will probably never leave me.
You know, my last question for you, I think when all of this is going on and this chaos, you know, what does Trump and his sycophants like to call it? Flood the zone, just with nonstop insanity, lawlessness, Doge, cutting Medicaid, cutting food programs, handing the government to Elon Musk. But I think what gets lost in this, beyond the tear gas, beyond the grenades, when you were just interviewing folks yesterday at the general strike, there's actually a real crisis going on in America. Can you kind of talk about what you've been hearing from folks in Minneapolis, Chicago? Because as horrible as the violence is, people are working 3 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
People are having to choose between medicine and groceries right now. While those things are going on, while healthcare rates are doubling, the president of the United States and his masked vigilante stormtroopers are declaring war on Americans when Americans right now are just struggling to kind of stay afloat. Can you kind of talk about what you've heard from people in Minneapolis about the real crisis going on?
Yeah, it's something that in our on the ground reporting, as we're reporting on this encroaching fascism in the United States, one thing that I have been asking people in first in Chicago, now in Minneapolis, this recurring question is, if rather than spending these billions upon billions of dollars on these on this secret police force, on this Gestapo, on this partisan army that exists, that is ultimately only answerable to the president, instead of spending that money on brutalizing your communities, what are ways the federal government could spend that money to actually offer you relief? The answers I get back from people are always about addressing their just basic abilities to live in this country. They are asking for childcare for their children, something that is actually affordable, ideally universal. They are asking for cheaper, if not free, government-sponsored healthcare. They don't want to, feel the pressure of if I lose my job, suddenly I lose my ability to stay alive. They're talking about the prices of groceries. I mean, they're talking about simple, basic, staple things in their lives. They don't feel secure. They don't feel like they always have access to just the ability to live and to address their needs and their families' needs on a week-to-week basis. They just want the means and that sense of safety and security. And instead, what the federal government is doing is shattering that sense of safety on a daily basis.
And I will add a great way to change the subject, if you were the president of the United States, from the fact that you were best friends with a global sex predator who had a global child sex trafficking ring, and that documents reveal you either were directly involved with that sex child trafficking ring or at the very least knew about it and looked the other way. Not to mention, documents seem to indicate you've committed significant amount of financial crimes. One hell of a way to change the subject, possibly permanently from that, is to declare war on your own people. JT, my last question, do you see this from your perspective on the ground? Do you see this fizzling out anytime soon? Or do you think the people of Minneapolis are ready for the long haul here to protest until, as they call it, get the fuck out?
The only way I see this fizzling out in the short term, like some immediate relief for the city of Minneapolis, is if suddenly the federal government has a change of heart and removes all of its agents, if it decides that it has caused enough pain and suffering. Short of that, what almost every single person I have talked to on the ground has told me is that they will be in the streets for as long as it takes. They do not care if it is weeks, months, years. They're taking it one day at a time. They will continue to resist the Trump administration in the same ways that they have. And I will also note that some of them have expressed this feeling of being backed into a corner, that they want to see even more action from their leaders, more real leadership, the ability to take the pain to the administration. We saw the one-day general strike and the tens of thousands of people it turned out grinding the economy of Minnesota to a crawl, if not a halt, on Friday. And now already you were seeing signs out in the street tonight, because tonight I went to a vigil turned march that went to the site of today's shooting. And there were already people who were holding signs up that said, expand the strike, that there is already people who are calling for broader action, whether that be in expanding to a nationwide strike or something more indefinite or protracted. They want to see more action be taken to try and bring this administration to heel by any means necessary.
I want to thank you, JT. Frankly, Status Coup has existed now for 8 years, and for most of it, I've basically been it. And it took me a while to find somebody like you to kind of be my co-pilot. But everybody should be grateful to not just you, but also, he's not on right now, our cameraman, John Farina, deserves multiple awards.
Yeah.
He got that footage on January 6th. He has gotten incredible footage in a war zone in Ukraine. He is the first one to run into the burning building, not run out. And he is not somebody who likes to come on camera and get the spotlight, but he is responsible for this footage being on camera. As much as JT is responsible for relaying what exactly is going on. Without John Farina, none of this exists. And I thank you, JT, because I know from doing this, it's not just physically exhausting, it is mentally and spiritually draining to do this work. And it's work. We're not just sitting here pontificating our opinions, even though we love certain channels like MeidasTouch who do that. We're out there in the streets, and this is not, you would agree, JT, our on the ground reporting 9 times out of 10 is not the one that goes viral. It's not what YouTube recommends. No. But I hope people seeing you today and us tonight and maybe just being introduced to Status Coup for the first time. If you can't support us financially, that's okay. Subscribe, share, word of mouth matters. But at the very least, I really think it's important to spread the word of what's actually going on the ground. And like you said, it's not, well, the Department of Homeland says this, and protesters, I don't know, they seem kind of rowdy. We're going to be neutral. You figure it out. No, you can't be neutral to fascism. So thank you so much, JT. Any parting words for the audience?
I'll just reiterate your praise for John Farina. He is the one who keeps me so safe out there. If you listen closely on our live streams, when the situation turns hairy like that, you might be able to faintly hear him in the background barking orders to me to make sure that I am standing in the right spot, or, he's just keeping me safe because I am so focused on what's happening around me and describing it for the audience. So I'm grateful to him. I'm grateful to our entire team here at Status Coup, you, Jordan, for giving me this opportunity, and to all of our producers who, work insanely long hours as well to be able to turn around all the content that we produce and get all of these stories out there. And also big thanks to our MeidasTouch partners as well. They are partners in the reporting that we are doing on the ground. We would not be able to reach the number of people that we do because the algorithms do not reward the kind of journalism that we do. It's through the partnership at MeidasTouch that we are able to tap into such a big audience at that. So huge thanks to them as well. And grateful to the audience for tuning in. And I've seen some of the comments expressing so much concern for John and I thank you for being people and for watching and tuning into us and making us your source of news. I promise not to let you down.
Most important question I forgot. Did you miss the cutoff? Is the hotel bar still open?
I did. I think I did miss the cutoff. If we've gone for longer than an hour, I think I missed the cutoff. But I did tell John Farina to order me a double. So that is waiting for me. I think he's probably watching the stream downstairs, and he's probably got the drink in his hand. And as soon as we get off here, I am going to breathe a huge sigh of relief, drink that, and have a shower and feel like a new man.
All right. Thanks, Ben. And
Yeah,
to
thank
you, the audience, thank you again for watching. Thank you to the Meidas Mighty, as they call them, and to Ben and everyone at MeidasTouch. It's been a real game changer to be able to broadcast on your channel, for you guys to, as they say, signal boost our on-the-ground reporting. You didn't have to do that. There was really very little in it for you. I think in a sea of bullshit artists, which is kind of digital media, you guys are genuine ones, and you value this on the ground justice journalism. So we thank you. We look forward to this partnership kind of evolving. And to everyone in the audience, thank you. We're remaining in Minneapolis. We're going to probably swap in a few different people so JT and John can get a break. But we'll be staying on the ground in Minneapolis. Definitely subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Support us financially if you can. StatusCoup.com/join. You could support us for as low as $5 a month. That's 16 cents a day. 16 cents a day. You could also sign up for our Substack, which you could sign up. There are free options. Our Substack is good because we send out an email when we're live. So you'll get a notification through Substack when we go live on the ground in Minneapolis and elsewhere. We're on Instagram and Twitter and Blue Sky and wherever else I forgot. But most importantly, thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Colin, editing and producing. He's been working literally since 9 a.m. today. So he's been going all day with us. Michelle, everybody. Thank you. And everybody have a good night.